Welcome to Heart Collaborations, where we explore the heart of wellness, mental and emotional well-being, relationships, personal passions, and thriving parenthood. Hi, I'm Annette.
And I'm Anita. Collectively, we have over 50 years in the educational and mental health arenas. Whether you're looking for information, personal stories, or just a place to feel seen and heard, you're in the right place. Join us as we dive into conversations that inspire, empower, help you grow, and add a little laughter to your life.
Hey, we want to welcome you to Heart Collaborations. So come on in and join us. We're excited that you're here. And we always are very thankful when they're here, aren't we?
We sure are.
Yeah. So, it's May, right? And May gets really busy. How's your May going so far?
It's busy.
Yeah, me too, for sure. And with that busyness, just want to encourage you. We're all feeling it, just the normal. There's graduations. There's,
I have a sixth grade graduation.
Yeah.
Well, I have a sixth grader that's graduating. And they're doing a whole little ceremony and stuff. So.
Right. Plus you got the after party, the before party, all that kind of good stuff, right? Yeah. And then just, their birthday parties. There's Mother's Day, Father's Day is coming up. Lots of things happening. And so just want to encourage you that as you navigate your May, and that's just the normal stuff, not even the extra stuff that comes up, right? Just take time to take a breath and to notice your breathing. That always helps me. All right, so let's get into it. Today we're talking about relationships and how perfect is it? We're moving into summer, right?
Yeah, so we're talking about dating relationships.
Dating relationships.
Yeah.
And some of the truths. So things that have been true about relationships continue to be true. Dating has changed, right?
Well, I haven't dated in almost 30 years, so I wouldn't know.
Yeah, me too, as a matter of fact.
But I feel like, the things for that has not changed. When we're looking for a relationship, we want to be respected, trusted. For me, I was looking for someone that had the same values as me, and I wanted someone that was smarter than me. Because if I got into an argument, I wanted them to be able to argue back with me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Someone that would challenge you a little bit, not just be a doorstop.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Good deal. Yeah. When we're talking about relationships and I'm thinking about moving into summer, which summer provides that free time, right?
Summer flings.
Yeah, there you go. And I was humming just a minute ago, Summer Lovin', right? And so it's like, Summer Lovin', have me a blast. Summer Lovin' happens so fast. Oh my gosh. Isn't that the truth for a lot of summer relationships is they start, they end, they barely have a middle, right?
Yeah.
So, and that's okay too. But if you're looking to sustain relationship, then there are some truths that you might want to think about. And so here we go. If you notice, we got this little popcorn bin today, and we want to honor our sponsor, The Meeting Place, and that's located in Farmers Branch, Texas. And so today we've got 10 truths, and we'll just kind of be randomly drawing these and then discussing them as we go. And, as we pause to, kind of give honor to our sponsor, Rob Bliss, and The Meeting Place. Thank you for providing this great opportunity for us to record our podcast here.
Yeah.
Just the kindness that you constantly show us. But yeah, so let's move forward. You want to grab the first one?
Yeah, I'll grab the first one. Also, a lot of networking happens here.
Oh, I'm glad you mentioned that. I want to read their tagline. So The Meeting Place, connect, collaborate, and learn. I really like that a lot. So it's a workspace. It's a collaboration space, right?
Yeah, yeah. So I got, you cannot sustain love while wearing a mask. Wow. That makes me think of truly like being your authentic self, and sometimes it's really hard to be your authentic self if there's any like shame or embarrassment of, experiences or things that happen. So, when meeting somebody, I'm thinking sometimes it's hard to take off that mask and truly be vulnerable and get to know them. So what are you thinking?
Yeah, I think so. When we talk about mask, what does that mean to wear a mask? And I think you said it, to not be your authentic self, right?
Yeah.
And there's a difference between, I think, putting your best foot forward when you initially meet someone and then learning to relax in that relationship and just be, who you are. What might be an example of a mask that someone might wear?
Well, I was just thinking maybe they don't want to go, maybe they don't want their family to meet, or they don't want their family to meet the new person because the family might scare them away, or, there are things, maybe illnesses at home that they don't want to share or are not ready to share. But I was just thinking, the longer you wear that mask, the harder it gets.
Yeah, that's a great example. And of course, like you said at the very beginning, but as that relationship progresses, but I love the point that you made, that the longer you wear that mask, the harder it's going to be to take it off. And at the end of the day, we want people to accept us for who we are.
But too, if you're wearing that mask, like, there's not a true connection because you're not truly being who you are. And all they know is the mask.
This pretend person, possibly?
Yeah. And so they don't really know who you truly are, your true values, And so to me, you can wear a mask for a week or two.
Right.
But then after that, that really becomes a place where it's hard to connect because now you're connecting with a person that truly doesn't exist.
Yeah. And even thinking about that, wearing a mask for a week or two, at the beginning, it's not even really a mask, right? Because you're just making your segue into that relationship, and you're only going to share so much in the beginning. But as you go into that relationship, when you begin to purposely say, I'm going to withhold this information, that's a mask. Maybe it's finances, right? And of course, you're not going to tell somebody on the first date, hey, I'm $20,000 in debt. But as that relationship progresses, if you're looking for that relationship to be a long-term relationship, then you're going to need to be vulnerable if you really want connection and you don't want to build resentment or have the potential for resentment in the future. And if both of you are on the same page and saying, okay, we want to build this, nurture this relationship into possibly something long-term, then at some point that's going to be valuable information that you're going to want to share.
Yeah. Yeah.
And not wear a mask about that.
And, the book by Brené Brown, The Imperfection, really is a good book because it truly talks about how what I got out of that book is truly being like, it's okay to own your own, accept yourself, and, there is no perfection, but knowing that you don't have to be perfect. And just accepting that and being able to build on that and be truthful and vulnerable with the person that you want to be with, that to me makes a connection.
Right. And I'm glad that you're sharing that resource, because that's one of our core values and goals, is that as we find, interesting articles, books, podcasts, TED Talks, whatever the situation may be, that we share that information so that others can benefit from it as well. You want to try another one?
Yeah.
Let's do it. All right.
Do you want to read that one?
Yeah, we'll just trade off back and forth, okay? Yeah. Communication is everything, for sure. So when we think about, this is so important. This communication is so important.
You got the right one.
I love it. You
got the right one.
Yeah. So when we think about communication, we definitely, going back to that being vulnerable. So honest, open, communication. But another part of communication is, willingness are the skills that you bring with you. So you were trying to say that I have really luscious skills when it comes to communication, weren't you?
Sure.
Okay. But is the ability to resolve conflict and the skills that you bring for that, because and looking at yourself, but also the person that you're in relationship with.
Well, I think, communication also, when I think about communication, I think of also the nonverbals, the body language that someone gives off to you. Or if you're talking to somebody, they really lean in,
Right.
I'm like, okay, so you are interested in what I'm saying, but if I'm like, then that tells me that you're not that interested in what I'm saying. And to me, I'm reading that body language and I'm looking. And so the communication that we give to people kind of depends on whether or not we're going to share what we want to share or what we intended to share. Because if we notice someone's not truly listening or understanding what we're saying, then that's going to kind of, not going to give that opportunity for that growth or that connection to happen.
Right. Yeah. So the ability in yourself or in others to be an active listener. And what does active listening look like?
Eye contact, for sure.
Giving space, and that could be, like you said, through eye contact, giving them space and opportunity to talk, checking for understanding.
Yeah. Head nod.
Right.
Or like these cues that we look for of understanding.
Yeah. And another big one, I think, as far as communication is emotional regulation.
That's a big one.
So
that's a big one.
If I don't have the ability to regulate my emotion, then when things are a little passionate, when they're maybe a little heated, maybe when we see things a little differently, and we need to get from point A over the bridge to point B, right? That's a very important skill. So let's talk just for a second about emotional regulation. And I feel compelled right here to just say, just because we're talking about this doesn't mean we're experts in our own lives about it.
I'm a pretty good communicator, Nat.
You do.
I'm just joking.
You do decent. I'm never
I know Annette does an excellent job. You are pretty good at communication, Annette.
I'm never. Let me just say this, okay? And this is my promise and honor to you. I'm never going to point out a weakness of yours when we're taping. I'm never going to do that.
Yeah, same here.
Yeah. So if you do it, then I'll go like, she sure. No, I'm kidding about that. But just even that is a type of respect and honoring that I think we're modeling right now, right? But
for sure.
So we're talking about emotional regulation, and so you can sense in your body when you're becoming dysregulated, right? When your emotions, when you're flooding. And so like, let's both, if it's okay with you, let's point out some things that we might experience in our body if we're becoming maybe defensive and emotionally not regulated.
I feel my body getting red, like hot. Like
yeah.
I'm Latina. Come on, I'm gonna get spicy. But when you were talking about that earlier, I was thinking about stonewalling, because stonewalling happens a lot. I feel like
talk to me about that for a minute, because I know what stonewalling is, but I don't hear that word much anymore.
Yeah, well, I was thinking about the silent treatment, because I see it a lot with couples and and things, and I'm thinking, okay, that's a type of stonewalling that maybe they don't even realize that they're stonewalling the other person when they're just shut down, silent, and so stonewalling is one of the four horsemen from Gottman. But when I think about that, I think about what the antidote is to that, and so just like you said, regulating ourselves, self-soothing. Right. I think we don't talk about that enough.
Yeah.
We've got to learn how to self-soothe. Oh gosh, I was trying to think of that movie. Oh my gosh, The Parenthood? No. Oh my God. It'll come to me.
Okay, I know
It'll come to me. But you know where they're talking about self-soothe, the ladies couples therapist. Oh gosh, I'll have to come back to that movie. But anyway, it makes me think of that little cute movie. But I also think like in relationships, right? When stonewalling happens and the person does not know like what you said is going on, like we're not able to regulate, our bodies are, for me, I'm feeling hot. What about you? What are you feeling?
It's funny because through this podcast, because I think I'm not going to say hide, but I don't see that. I don't realize unless you're telling me that you're experiencing that discomfort, that dysregulation, that hot, right? I experience the same thing. And that's something I've learned through this podcast with you is that I know one of the first 2 podcasts you mentioned, sweaty palms, right?
Yeah.
I experienced the same kind of thing. So we experience some of the same kinds of things. And I think that's interesting. Sometimes a person they'll begin to feel defensive or hurt or flooding. And they will, like you said, shut down. It might become hard, become hard to think clearly, right?
Yeah.
And so they will withdraw and withhold, right? And sometimes a person might even use withholding as a way of punishing or hurting.
Right.
Yeah. So, we want to be aware of those things in ourselves. We also want to be aware of those things in the people that we're learning about and looking to potentially have, a long-term relationship with. So, another communication skill that's important is expressing your needs clearly without being defensive.
That's such a good one because we don't know people's experiences. We don't know their past. We're getting to know them, and that's a really important one, I feel like.
Yeah. And a fourth one is just, constructive problem solving or conflict management. I think this is one of the biggest ones because if you're in relationship for more than a day, you're gonna have some ups and downs. You're gonna have some conflicts and things that you need to work through.
Part of that is knowing who you are, and knowing what your values are and what's going to make you tick, right?
Right.
Because if we don't know, and all of a sudden we're talking, and then we're red as a hot tamale, then we and sometimes it's hard when you don't know how to regulate.
Yeah, you might. So to have a plan of regulating, and this is something I've thought about even this past week, is that you talked about soothing. So it might be purposely taking a breath. There are other kinds of things that maybe you take a second and make yourself a cup of tea if you're at home and you have that convenience. And maybe you ask for a short break. Say,
that's what I was going to say, is that you tell your partner, hey, let's take 5 or 10 minutes and then come back.
And like I said, I almost feel like sometimes in some of these topics, I almost feel like in a little bit of a hypocrite if I'm not presenting that, hey, I'm trying to grow in these areas as well. These are things that oftentimes you will know on an academic level. And maybe you can carry this out with 99.9% of the people in your life, but you might have that one person or 2 people where it's more of a struggle and we have to grow. So I'm growing in these areas as well.
Yeah. And I was just thinking of Gottman and Levinson in 1992. They did that's when they first started doing those labs, for couples, and told the couple, okay, something's wrong with the video recording. So we all please go out to the waiting room, but you're not allowed to talk to each other. Just look at the magazines. And they had been in there arguing and were heated and were told, oh, you got to stop arguing for right now. You got to go to the waiting room. So they did that on purpose. They did that so that the couple could come back in and have a seat and, have a cool down. And so that's how they know that works.
Yeah. I love, Anita, I love it when you talk numbers to me. I love it when you're able to do that. So you
only when I remember things.
No, that's great. And, you mentioned Gottman. For those out there that might not know who Gottman is, let's tell them a little bit about him, okay? What comes to mind?
Well, I'm thinking about the couple.
Yeah.
You know, both Dr. Gottmans. They've
So
done.
there's the Gottman Institute.
Yes.
That if any of you guys are interested in that, we love pointing out authors and researchers and clinicians. So Gottman has a website.
And they've been doing research for so many years
Yeah.
Into couples. And they're really the only, ones that I know that are truly have researched for such a long time, but they've also collaborated with John Levinson. And he's done a lot of the work too. So.
And I know you mentioned the Four Horsemen. And
that's from Gottman.
Yeah, that's from Gottman. And that's something that we might talk a little bit about today. If we don't get into that today, then that's could be another episode because it's really worthy stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I don't think we do it justice.
No, I don't think so. Yeah. So, So Gottman Institute, check it out.
Yeah. Okay, let me get one more. Let's see. See what I've got. Oh, I really like this one. Your reflection, your relationship reflects your inner world. When I think about that, I think about a mirror, and I think about a mirror of like outside, in, because what we see on the inside is that really what we're reflecting on the outside, And so when I think
it will be one way or another, right?
Right. And so when we think about, the experiences that we've had, and how are we reflecting those today, and how are we verbalizing what has happened to us in the past, or what we've learned in the past that we are taking with us,
Like I was thinking about that, and this is, something for our scripture loving people. But I think it has some truth in it. I know it has some truth in it, but it says, out of the abundance of the heart, the mouth speaketh. So that's another way of saying what you just said about a mirror, right? So whatever is in our heart, we're going to demonstrate that. It's going to be manifested in some way, often through our mouth.
Yeah. And the book that we read in it, The Body Keeps the Score,
right,
is another really good book that really tells us, about us holding things in our body. And I know in
and that's related to trauma.
Related to trauma.
Specifically related to trauma he's speaking to. Yeah.
And I know when I did my Y12SR training, they tell us the issues are in your tissues. So it's like having everything that you've experienced still inside you. And so it's interesting that I got this one, that it's the reflection of your inner world.
Right. So sometimes conscious, sometimes unconscious. I always default though that we are the authors of our world. We are the authors of from today forward. That's something that I definitely believe in. So, but I think, back to, for example, if I'm a person who's been, wounded in relationship and maybe I'm kind of set to be on the defensive and I have to check myself and I have to maybe grow in some self-esteem, some boundary setting on making my intentions and my opinions clear so that I can check and see, is that person, I might have some paranoid kind of tendencies to think that someone is always out to get me or to harm me. Or
I think that's what's really important is that we all need to know our own biases. And along with that too is our truth to ourselves. Because how can we go out there and try to be in a relationship when we can't even be honest with ourselves? So
yeah. And that might be something we talk about one day too. I should be writing down these topics, but how do you really get to know yourself, right?
By being vulnerable with yourself and You know, Brene Brown on her vulnerability. You know, she's got a video on vulnerability.
She does a TED Talk for sure. I know that.
Yeah, she on her TED Talk, she talks about vulnerability and how you know, just dealing with the shame and the embarrassment of the experiences of the past can make you a new person depending on how honest you want to be with yourself. How do you want to accept yourself? You know, because you can't accept anybody else unless you accept yourself.
Yeah. And, you know, she is a leading researcher in shame. That's kind of where she got her start. And shame is such a powerful topic. I'm so drawn to it right now because shame can crush.
Oh yeah.
Shame can change the course of lives. And so it's something that we want to think about for ourselves, identifying when we feel shame or experience shame and how we want to deal with that and move past that, but also in relationship with others. You know, when you talk about, for example, AA, the 12 steps, one of the reasons that organization is so powerful and transforming, helping to transform lives is because, you know, oftentimes when people are dealing with overusage or alcoholism, drug addiction,
Abuse.
all the isms, right?
Yeah.
They feel such shame, and if they're not careful, and the people in their lives can either give a hand to help pull them out of that or push them back down. And a lot of that's about shame.
You know, in some of the work, you know, shame is, you could never be authentic if you're not willing to accept. You know, and a lot of you can give somebody a hand, that doesn't mean they're going to take it.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
Or you can give them a hand, but if they're not true to themselves, there's no work there to be done.
I think a guiding principle in that is I'm responsible for what
actions.
is the right action for me in this situation, in this relationship. I'm not responsible for how you respond. So if I feel in my core that the right thing for me to do is to extend that hand, then I extend that hand. But like you said, I can't control if that hand is taken or rejected. So yeah, lots of good things we're talking about today. Let's do another one. All right. Healthy relationships require effort. Oh my gosh. Is that not true? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, just like anything else in life, relationships have ups and downs. If you don't think there are going to be some downs, I'm sorry. I don't want to be pessimistic. I'm actually an eternal optimistic person, but the reality is there are going to be ups and downs, right? And so how do you work out a relationship though? And when do you know that it's too much work? Because although relationships do take work, they take that nurturing.
It's like
they can be too much work as well.
It's like a flower. If you don't water it, it doesn't grow. You know, so watering, you know, really getting to know, I'm going to go back to being your authentic self.
Okay.
Because you got to be your authentic self with that person and that person with you, right? And so that way you know what they like, what they don't like, you know, because why would I water bananas to a flower? You know? So it's kind of like...
Wait, what does that even mean? I need some help on that. I want to repeat it back to you, okay?
Okay.
How do I water bananas to a flower? What the heck does that mean?
It's kind of like, how would, you know, you have a partner and this partner does not like carrots.
I thought we were talking bananas.
Well, I'm using a metaphor. Follow me. So if you know, it's all about respect too, because if I knew that, you know what, my flower only likes water, but I give it bananas.
Got you.
Right.
Right.
And so I'm not I know that my flower does not like bananas, but I'm pushing the bananas.
Yeah.
So I'm not really respecting that person or that boundary, right?
Yeah.
And then what do I expect to get back? Because if I'm not willing to give truly with my heart, then
Right.
what am I going to get back?
Right.
I'm probably going to get the same nonsense of bananas that I gave, you know? So
Okay. Have you been like paying attention to any shopping trips I've been on lately or something? I don't know. So definitely, and of course that reminds me of the 5 love languages. Wait, I'm gonna
Gary?
Yeah, I couldn't remember the name of the author for a second. Gary Chapman. Yes. Wrote, and this book has been out for quite some time.
Oh my gosh.
But it's
years.
still a good book, right?
Yeah.
And so real quickly, let's just kind of identify the 5 love languages. And so what that means is how we express love, but also how we interpret love being given back. And that kind of goes back to your analogy of the water and the banana, right? I was with the sort of kind of, okay. So let's see, words of affirmation.
Words of affirmation. Service.
Acts of service.
Acts of service.
Touch and affection.
Quality time.
Quality time. Yep. One more.
What's the last one?
Come on. Don't leave us hanging. Real quickly, see words of affirmation, quality time, acts of service, touch. Dang it. All right, people.
I don't remember.
We're going to come back to it because it's going to come to us. But yeah, if you think of it before we get back to us, just put it in the comments there,
Annette,
right?
Maybe one of our listeners knows the answer.
I'm sure they do.
Please let us know which one is the 5th one.
All right. But yes, excellent book and something to think about, when we do, for example, no. Do we say acts of service?
Yes.
That's it.
No, I said acts of service.
Yeah. So I know for me personally, that's a big one, acts of service.
Giving.
Yeah. Oh, gift giving.
Gift giving.
Definitely. Yeah. Right. It's no wonder that I would forget that one because that's probably like not very high on my list, but I need to be aware of that one. It's really important. All right. So another resource, like we were saying, is the 5 love languages by Gary Chapman.
Okay. Let's see what I got here. Oh, connection requires vulnerability. So here we are again with vulnerability.
Yeah, big word.
So I mentioned the TED Talk by Brene Brown for vulnerability. That's a great one. Also, her book, Daring Greatly, is her great book on exploring vulnerability. And she took a lot of time to write that book.
Right. A lot of research went into that book for sure. Yeah. That leads me. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, really, we kind of have covered vulnerability. I feel like we've covered it.
That leads me back to the discussion about, for example, programs like AA that have a 12-step program or whatever. It leads me back to conversation about that. Our point is, one of the reasons that those programs are successful is because they create an environment for people to be vulnerable. So I go into that situation and you open up and you share an experience or a challenge or a victory that you've had. And then guess what? That gives me the space, the encouragement to also, one of those shameful topics, to be vulnerable, to open up. And that increases the success of people in those programs. So,
well, when you were saying that, I was thinking about, universality, because when people open and share, then they realize that, what, I wasn't the only one that grew up with a crappy life. You did too, and so now they've got a space where they can come and be comfortable and be able to share, how they are feeling. So,
yeah. All right. I think it's my turn, right? All right. So this truth is love thrives in freedom, not control. Love thrives in freedom.
I'm all about that one.
Talk to me. Speak to me.
Well, even in dating a relationship, right? It's kind of like, I know times have changed, it's like, okay, I'm going to pay 50, you pay 50, whatever, the 50-50 rule, right?
Right.
But really it's more of a negotiation. And I'm going to tell you why. It's because if the guy that I'm dating, if he's making, or let's say he's a great cook, right? And I'm not that great of a cook, and we're always going on a date, and he's willing to cook. Well, and he doesn't mind, so that's okay.
For sure, yeah.
And so it doesn't have to be all about the 50-50 rule, or I feel like it's more of a negotiation.
Yeah, and I think so every couple has to figure out those lines and boundaries, right? In terms of what works for their relationship. I'm blessed to have a spouse that anytime I want to have an adventure, maybe it's I want to go back and get my master's degree. Maybe it's I want to start an LLC. Maybe I want to learn a new hobby, whatever. I get a yes. And I'm so thankful for that. Just the yeses that I get from my spouse. And a good partner is going to encourage and honor and support
your biggest
individual
cheerleader
growth, right?
Right.
So that autonomy
I was going to say
relationship.
I think you just said the keywords.
Okay.
Individual growth. It's really hard. I know when you first get into a relationship thinking, oh, we got to be joined at the hip.
Right.
But then what happens with that is less conversations because, well, you already,
Just go to any restaurant, look at the couples that have been together for a few years, and what are they doing? I'll tell you. Not a lot of conversations sometimes happening.
Yeah. Well, because both of them are always in the same place at the same time,
right.
So it makes it hard. But individual growth to me is so important because I thrive on that. And I feel like as a person, you have to grow.
Right.
And so it's not like that person is not with you, but like you said, you get a natural cheerleader that's always in your corner, making it easy for you to be able to do what you want to do.
So in relationship, you're going to, a healthy relationship, you're going to have that joint time together, shared interests, those kinds of things. But you will probably also want to continue to develop those independent relationships and interests as well. And I can remember my first really, really, important dating relationship that I had. And it was in high school. And, I hear a lot of adults minimizing the relationships in high school. I take issue with that. Although those kids are learning and growing in relationship, they still have very valid feelings and can even in high school for sure develop a relationship. I have multiple friends that met in high school, dated in high school, and married and are still married after many years. This particular relationship for me was somebody that I thought they checked all the boxes, right? Really loved this young man. And at some point, after a year or so, that person called off that relationship. And I was devastated, okay? And really hurt. But when I learned such a valuable lesson, and I try to share this with everybody that I meet, especially that is younger, is when we broke up, because we had spent so much time together, I had lost some of those other relationships that I had before. And so a very important relationship, I'd lost, you can either have a security net under that main relationship or not. And because I had withdrawn, not even intentionally, it just happened and I was young. I didn't really know. I hadn't had enough life experience. But I can guarantee you after that, I made sure that I continued to develop other relationships, friendships on all different kinds of levels. You have your friend that you go to the bookstore with, you have your friend that you play sports with, you have your, all those different levels. You have your friends that you really share intimacy with. And just want to encourage any of you out there in dating relationships, even friendships, really, make sure that you're not as they say, putting all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah.
Make sure that you're continuing to have healthy relationships in all different kinds of ways. So, yeah.
Okay. Is it my turn? Or
Yep.
your turn?
It's your turn.
My turn. Okay, let's see. Attraction without emotional compatibility doesn't last. You mean I can't just get with a hunk at the gym?
You can.
It's not going to last.
I don't know. What are some things that might help it? Yeah.
You know, I think, well, one, there's got to be an emotional connection. And two, for me, I need to have some shared values.
Right.
I think to me, that's like one of the most important things in a relationship is making sure I have the same values or they have the same values as I do.
What would be an example of some shared values? Let's talk about that for a second. One that really quickly comes to mind for me is spirituality. All right. Do we see that part of our life, be it faith, be it communion with nature, whatever it is to that person? Is there a shared value? Because our faith is so intimate to us, right? So I think that's one thing that you want to check out.
Yeah.
What would be some other types of values?
Well, family for me.
Right.
You know.
Definitely. So. Yeah. So if family is really important to you, but maybe they came from a family where, they didn't circle up a lot. They were more independent. Then they might not want to go hang out with your family every Sunday or whatever the situation may be. So that's another area to definitely check out.
Or even have children, if they don't want to have children and I want children, then
definite. Yeah.
Why even go on that date?
Right.
Like we're done.
Yeah. And going back to mask, I think sometimes that topic right there shows up with mask because people think, oh, I don't want to have children, but I'm afraid to go out on the limb and share that. I'm afraid that will be a deal breaker.
Yeah.
And it can really cause problems in the relationship, right? All right, let's see what this next one is. All right, red flags don't turn green with time. Red flags don't turn green.
That is so
what
true.
What do we mean by red flags, right?
That is so true. So, even as you're getting to know this person and you're seeing, let's say, a red flag of maybe they're not very considerate with you.
Okay.
Or not putting you as a priority, right?
Maybe honesty.
Honesty.
Maybe you're one of these people that you don't like exaggeration. You see things kind of black and white when it comes to that topic of honesty.
Yeah. Or being on time all the time.
Okay. Yeah.
I mean, so
if you're living with somebody and you have an issue with time, or if time is important and you see it as a respect issue, how many times a day would that person have an opportunity to disappoint you and, in your mind, disrespect you? Oh, a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
That could be a big one for sure. Yeah. Okay. There, I want to mention, and I'm going to, for full transparency, I have not been to this website. Okay. But there's a checklist at Psych Central. And it's red flags in relationships. I want to go check that out, but I haven't yet. Have you?
No, I haven't been to that one, but I would highly recommend Love is Respect.
Okay.
Love is Respect is a great website. I mean, it's for adolescents and it's for grown-ups, but I really like that it's a very easily laid out and you can easily go in there, take your own little quiz. If you're even thinking, am I, and when we think about abuse, we think about physical, but it could also be emotional,
Right.
And so it's got like a little quiz that you can take there for emotional or abusive or, whatever. But it also lists a lot of the red flags, which I like.
So if you're seeing red flags, and I believe in patterns, okay, there's some red flags that are going to happen once and you're going to know that's enough. I don't want to be a part of this relationship going forward, right?
Yep.
But, in terms of people will make a mistake here or there. And so you're looking for a pattern.
Yeah.
And if that's something that's important to you, then you want to weigh it out. Is this something that I'm willing to compromise on? Yeah.
Yeah. That's a hard one.
And sometimes, to be fair, let's say, for example, we'll use that example of time, right? Let's say that person doesn't view time in the same way you do, and their body, their mind kind of works a little differently. Then you bring that to the table and you say, this is really important to me. And you tell the reasons why. And you also tell how it impacts you, as far as that you might feel disrespected or whatever the situation may be, and give that person an opportunity to check themselves out and see if that's something that they're willing to try to grow in. Because I'm sorry, but
if they're willing to work on it, then that speaks volumes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And oftentimes, there's something called the Johari window. And that means that there are some things that I know about myself and nobody else knows. There are some things that I know about myself, you know about me. There are some things you know about me that I don't know about me, right? So there are 4 different pains. But for example, that last one that I said, there's some things that you might see about me that I don't know. And I need you to hold that mirror up to me so that I can see it as well. And then I can analyze it. I can check it out. I can say, is that an area that I want to change or want to grow in? And then we can move forward from there. And forward doesn't always mean a long time forward. It might mean forward, and we're just going to be friends or acquaintances or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. Shared life vision matters. We kind of talked about that, but about shared life visions of where do we want to live? Do we have the same values? Do we both want kids? Do we want any pets inside the house, outside the house? Like, there are so many things that who's going to be making the bed in the morning?
Yeah, I think, I think it can also mean, like, let's say if I want to live a life of gratitude, right? And so gratitude is very important to me. But maybe I'm connecting with a person who is a kind of like a half empty, the glass half empty kind of person. You can either see the glass is half full or you can see the glass is half empty. And that could be a real downer, right?
Yeah.
So even looking at those kinds of things.
I mean, you have to really think, you have to really be picky when you're picking your partner, because 1, you don't want to settle.
Right.
2, you want to be true to yourself, and not have to make adjustments for somebody else or change your values for somebody else.
Right. And we do so much planning. We plan for what college we want to go to. We do all this work of building a beautiful resume that will get us into that college. We plan for careers. We plan for lots of things. And relationship is another thing to plan for without, expecting perfection. But these are things to consider. And I think one of the reasons that it's important that we're talking about it today is because everybody's life experience is different and where they are developmentally and how many relationships they've had or not had. So yeah, I think these are good things for us to be talking about. Oh, there's one more.
Is that our last one?
This is our last one.
All right.
So this is number 10 here. Mutual respect is non-negotiable. And we know that, respect is at the foundation of every relationship.
Yep.
It has to do with trust. It has to do with safety. It has to do with a lot of things. Respect can, for example, you and I, in this relationship of building a business, a company, a podcast, and all the things that go with it. If you are respectful to me, then that's going to foster my creativity. That's going to foster my ability to bring my authentic self. And we know our authentic self is our most creative self.
Yep.
And the same thing for you. If I'm respectful and give you space, then that's going to foster good, positive things from that for sure.
Or it gives you freedom.
Yeah.
It goes back to what did we have freedom? The one that I said was mine. In I'm going to say in any relationship, really, giving the other person the space to be creative or, just to be themselves, you get so much more.
So let's talk real quickly, just a couple of seconds, about how do you show respect? So you can show respect in terms of
Being on time.
being on time. You can show respect in the way you communicate. Are you demeaning, when you communicate with that person? Are you using words that you would want someone to use with you?
Gestures.
Yeah, gestures. And also going back to the mirror, how do you talk to yourself? If you talk abusively or unkindly to yourself, that's probably going to be manifested in your other relationships as well. So, check that out. Not always giving advice, respecting that they are capable and can figure some things out on their own. You don't have to always bring a fix-it attitude to the conversation.
Yeah. Just by listening and giving them an opportunity, it not only gives them an opportunity for growth, but think about the confidence they get out of that. So, yeah.
Right. And, so lots of different ways to show a person respect and very pivotal, important to the conversation. Yeah. We definitely want you to respect us. And, if there's some things that you're liking about what's happening, be sure and subscribe, follow. We really are trying to we really want to make an impact, and having subscribers is really an important part of that.
Yes.
To put us on a platform where we can reach more people.
And I would ask that you, just kind of like we were doing an Ask It basket, if you're familiar with it, you can put in email us at hearttoheartcollaboration@gmail.com, collaborations.com. And we'll put some questions in here and we can answer them or share some topics that you would like to discuss. We'd love to have you here with us.
For sure. So own your wellness.
Elevate your life.
The content presented in this episode or any others should not be considered therapy and is not prescriptive. If you have questions or concerns about mental health, contact your primary care physician or local mental health provider. The opinions expressed are solely ours and are not representative of our employers or coworkers.